Hi, I'm Rebecca from yarnandchai.com, and I'm going to teach you how to make the Hope Earwarmer. This earwarmer comes in 4 different sizes for toddler, child, teen, and adult. I am going to make the toddler one on screen, but on the left side of your screen you're going to see instructions for all 4 of those sizes, so you can follow along with this video really easily regardless of what size that you want to make. This is an easy level pattern, and you're going to need a DK weight. That's a number 3 weight yarn. I'm using Baby Bee Sweet Delight in the color Sugar Plum. You're also going to need an H hook, and you're going to need a yarn needle and a button at the end. And you're going to want to make sure that your yarn needle can fit through the holes of the button without much trouble, because you're going to need that to sew it on at the end. Your gauge for this pattern is 17 half double crochets times 12 rows equals 4 inches square. So let's get started. So to start this pattern, we're going to chain 71 for the toddler size, which is what I'm going to be doing. If you're doing the child size, chain 75, teen size, chain 85, and adult size, chain 89. All right, so go ahead and chain what you're supposed to chain according to the instructions on the side for the size that you're doing. Okay, so I just finished my 71 chain. For round 1, we're going to half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So this is the first chain, this is the second chain. We're going to go ahead and insert right into the back loop of that second chain and complete a half double crochet. And then we are going to half double crochet in each remaining chain. So at the end of this, if you're doing the toddler size, you should have 70 half double crochets. For the child size, you should have 74. For the teen size, you should have 84. And for the adult size, you should have 88. So go ahead and half double crochet in each chain. Okay, I've just finished half double crocheting down the length of my chain, and what I'm going to do to finish off round 1 is I'm going to bring the ends together without twisting them. So I'm going to run my finger down this without twisting it, and I'm going to bring this together, and I'm going to insert my hook into that very first half double crochet. And I'm going to join with a slip stitch. And so now I have my work in the round. And for round 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now, working in turned rounds can feel a little bit tricky. It's not something that's done super often, but it is necessary to get the pattern that we want on this earwarmer. So what we're going to do is we are going to single crochet in the 3rd loop of each stitch around. The 3rd loop, I'm going to show you how to locate it. These are the top loops. So this is what we would normally insert our hook into when we were going to single crochet. We could put it under these top 2 loops. On a half double crochet stitch, when you're working in turned rounds or rows, you can find the 3rd loop facing you, okay? So this is the back loop, this is the front loop, and if you turn your work, you're going to see a 3rd loop right there, okay? For the next stitch, it would be back loop, front loop, and then turn your work, and you're going to see a 3rd loop right there. It's real easy to stick your hook into it, and you're going to know that you're in the right place if it's pretty easy to stick it into. There is another little like kind of mini bump loop that's right next to it, and if you try to stick your hook in there, it is so much harder to get it in there. That's how you know you're not in the right place, okay? So, and to make sure that we are starting in the right stitch when we turn, I'm going to teach you how to do that part too. Okay, so these are the loops. Let me take my hook out and show you. I'm going to hold this out of the way. These are the loops that were created when we chained 1 before we turned, okay? Those don't count as a stitch. These are the loops that were created when we slip stitched the previous round, and those also don't count as a stitch. So even though that looks like it might be the first stitch, when you're working in the round, you don't work into this one, okay? So once again, loops created by the chain one, loops created by the slip stitch. This is our first stitch right here, okay? So these would be the top loops. We turn it to find that third loop and we stick our hook under, and we're just gonna complete a single crochet. Like that, okay? And then move on to the next one. Single crochet in the third loop, single crochet in the third loop, single crochet in the third loop. And if you take a peek on the other side of your work, you're going to see that this nice braiding is showing up, and that's what these third loop stitches are doing. And that's going to be along the edge of your ear warmer. So regardless of what size you're doing, you're just going to do this all the way around and check your stitch count at the end of this round to make sure that you've done the appropriate amount of stitches. So go ahead and complete that all the way around. And when you finish round 2, you're going to join to the top of the first stitch of the round with a slip stitch. You're going to do that every time. Okay? All right, and make sure that when you joined, you didn't accidentally twist your ear warmer. And that will be the last time that we have to check that. At this point, it's going to be pretty impossible to do that. So, all right, chain 1 and turn your work, and we're going to move on to round 3. And round 3 is what we're going to repeat for the majority of the rest of the ear warmer. So get used to doing this sequence because this is what you're going to be doing a lot. All right, so once again, we've got the loops that were created by the chain 1. They don't count as a stitch. We have the loops that were created by the slip stitch. They don't count as a stitch. So this is our first stitch of the round. And as you'll notice, the instructions for this round say to skip the first stitch and single crochet and half double crochet in the next stitch, okay? So this is the stitch we said was the first one. We're gonna skip right over that one and we're gonna go to the next one. And we're gonna single crochet and half double crochet in this stitch. Okay? And the instructions now give us some parentheses to repeat. They say skip the next one, single crochet and half double crochet in the next one around. So what that means is we're going to repeat everything in those parentheses all the way around the ear warmer. This is regardless of what size you're doing. Skip the next stitch, single crochet and half double crochet in the next. Skip the next one, single crochet and half double crochet in the next. Oops. Skip the next one, single crochet, half double crochet, and you're going to do that all the way around, and we'll pick back up at the end of this round. Okay, so this is the end of round 3, and I'm just going to join to the first stitch of the round with a slip stitch. And what we just did, round 3, is what we're going to repeat through the body of the ear warmer. So if you're working on the toddler size with me, you're going to do through round 14 the exact same way. If you are working on the child size, you're going to do it through round 16. If you're working on the teen or the adult size, you're going to do it through round 18. You're just going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to show you one more time how we're going to make sure that we're in the right stitches here. So let's say we're all on round 4 together now. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. That chain doesn't count as a stitch, and that join doesn't count as a stitch. So this is the first stitch, but the instructions tell us to skip that and go into the second stitch for our single crochet and half double crochet. And you're going to know that you're in the right spot, because what's nice about round 4 on is that the little clusters that we've been making are forming these little kind of noticeable openings every 2 stitches, and that's exactly where we're going to be putting our next cluster of single crochet, half double crochet. Okay, so there's the next one, and then skip the next stitch, single crochet and half double crochet, and we're going to do that all the way around, join with a slip stitch at the end, chain 1 and turn, and do it again. So again, if you're working on toddler for me, you're going to do this through round 14. Child through 16, and then teen and adult through rounds 18. And then when we get to the end of that, we'll meet back together to finish off the second edge of the earwarmer. I've just finished my final repeat round, and so for the next round we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to half double crochet in each stitch around. So again, loops from the chain 1, loops from the join, and this is our first stitch. And since we're half double crocheting in each stitch around, we are going to start right there with our half double crochet, and go ahead and half double crochet all the way around, and when you are done you can join with a slip stitch. Alright, and for your final round you're going to chain 1 and turn, and you're going to single crochet in the 3rd loops of each stitch around, just like we did at the beginning of the earwarmer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go right into that first stitch, into the 3rd loop, and single crochet, and keep doing that. And as you can see on the right side of the work, you're going to have more of that pretty braiding. Okay, so your braiding should be on the same side of your work both times. So go ahead and single crochet in each 3rd loop around, and then join with a slip stitch, and then I'll show you how to cinch it up and add your button. That's the end of my final round, and I've already joined with my slip stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and fasten off my yarn, but I want to leave a kind of a long tail here because I'm going to be using that to cinch my earwarmer. So just go ahead and pull that through and leave that alone for now, and we are going to come back to this first round, and we have this little gap between the first and last stitches of round 1 that we want to get sewn up. So we're going to take our starting tail and we're going to thread it through our yarn needle, and we're going to use this yarn needle to stitch up this gap. So it's not a perfect science. You're just going to go through the top loops, or the exposed loops of the chain over there, and pull it, and then go back to the other side. Oops, that was too far. Go back to the other side, pull it, and then I like to go sort of into the middle area of the stitch so that there's not a hole there. And then we're going to go ahead and weave in the end in the back. When I weave in my ends, I like to go back and forth a few times just to make sure that it's not going anywhere. And then you can go ahead and cut there. All right, so what we have left now is our ending tail, which is nice and long, and I'm going to show you how to cinch this up. Okay, to cinch up our headband, I'm going to thread the long finishing tail through my yarn needle, and then I'm just going to carefully set it aside for a moment while I work on my cinching. I have the seam of the work facing me, and with this pattern the seam really isn't bad at all, but we are going to make it even more hidden because we're going to hide it in our cinch. So essentially we are going to call this earwarmer seamless because the seam is going to disappear here in a second, which is really great. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to gather the seamed section of the headband and fold it in half so that the seam is facing us. Okay, so I've taken the top, my seam is right here, and I folded it in half. and I'm going to pinch that. Then, holding onto the fold with one hand, I'm going to use my other hand to pinch the upper half in half again. So this would be the top half. I'm going to fold that in half and pinch. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom half. I'm going to fold that in half and cinch. Pinch that together. So now I've got 3 cinches. And then I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to run it through all 3 sections of what I have pinched together here. The closer I get to the surface of this gathered section, the better my cinch is going to look. So what I do is I run my needle just under just a couple of stitches, a couple of threads, making sure I'm hitting every fold. You have to get every single fold here. So run it through like that, and pull nice and tight. And then I'm going to wrap the yarn around the underside of the ear warmer, and I'm going to come back and do it again, right in the same place, making sure I'm hitting all 3 of those folds again. Pull that nice and tight. And if you want, you can do it again, just to make sure that it's really secure. All right, and then I'm going to run my yarn needle under one more time, and I'm going to take my button and I am going to thread it through, put the button right there, and then I'm going to thread my yarn needle through the other side of the button. Now if your button has 4 holes in it, you're going to want to do the first 2 crisscrossing. Thread it through the first 2, pull tight, run it under, and then come through and do the second crisscross from underneath that button. It's a lot easier for placement, but since I only have 2, I went up and down and then back around again. That's going to pull it nice and tight. And then I'm going to tie a knot down here and weave in my tail. Pull that tight, make sure everything looks nice on the front. You have to work it with your fingers a little bit to get it to lay perfectly. That's fine. Looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and weave this in on the bottom. And that is it. Your Hope ear warmer is done. This is, again, the toddler size. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. You can find the full written pattern on my blog at yarnandchai.com/hope-earwarmer. If you're sharing your finished ear warmer on Facebook or Instagram, you can tag me at yarnandchai.design. And be sure to subscribe.